What's up, guys? If you don't know who I am, my name is Brilliance, and in this video, I'm about to share with you the exact reasons why your landing page isn't booking calls for your info offer, your coaching program, and even a consulting service. Now, the lessons that I'm about to share with you in this video are simply a distillation of knowledge and data that we've been able to acquire from building well over 50 landing pages for over 40 different businesses in the info product, coaching, and consulting space. And through these landing pages and funnels, we've been able to help drive well over $5 million in revenue. So strap in, let's get right into the first one. Now, as you can see on my screen, we have 5 different reasons why this could be happening. And the first one is your traffic. So if no one sees the landing page, then it doesn't matter what's on the landing page. It doesn't matter how good your offer is. If no one sees the offer, then no one is going to buy the offer. It's as simple as that. That's why traffic is the number one thing on this list. And at the same time, if the wrong eyeballs view the page, then it doesn't really matter how many eyeballs view the page. So let's say you're selling apples, for example, and you're driving the traffic of people who want to buy oranges, right? You're going to have maybe 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people even visit the landing page. But what's going to happen is none of them are going to convert. However, when you're looking at, the sessions on your page, you're going to figure out that you have, dozens of people coming to the page, like a heavy influx of traffic. But what's happening is that these people, like the offer doesn't correlate to, what these people are looking for. So you need to make sure you're driving the right kind of traffic. And the reason why this is so crucial, like I said, is it doesn't really matter if your landing page is the best landing page in the world, if your funnel is the best in the world. If no one sees what's on the landing page, then it doesn't really matter what's if no one sees the landing page, then it doesn't matter what's on the landing page, basically, right? So, and there's a few ways to tackle this, right? You need well-scripted ads that sell one big idea, right? When you're thinking about, the pain points of your audience, there's so many of them that you could go through. You could go through a dozen of them, right? But if you look at companies like Apple, for example, they have one thing. When I think Steve Jobs was coming out with the campaign for the for the iPod, I think, the message there was, 1,000 songs in your pocket. Now, does this mean that you couldn't use the iPod? I think it was the phone. Don't quote me on this, but basically, you just need one strong point of messaging. You need one big idea that you can convey via your content and via your ads. And if you do this correctly, then you're going to get the right kind of traffic. And I'm going to break this down. Towards the step 3 here, you're going to see exactly, how to do this. And another thing as well that, matters with sending the right traffic is you need to make sure that you're sending the right data back to Facebook using the Typeform and Calendly combo, which I'm going to explain in a couple steps. You're going to see exactly how to do this in a couple steps. Now, that's the number one for traffic. You need to make sure that your traffic is speaking directly to your ads, and your content are speaking directly to the people that you want to acquire as customers. If not, then you're just going to attract the wrong type of people. And I know this because I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on ads, and I know exactly what it takes to acquire the right people. Because if you have messaging that is not congruent with your landing page, then it's going to create a disconnect, and that's not what you want at all. That's the worst thing that could happen, is a disconnected messaging, right? So anyways, let's move on to the next step here. The next thing is the big idea. As you can see, I mentioned the big idea here in the traffic stage. And what this means is that you need to figure out one point, you need to figure out one thing that is the most important to your audience, at least to most of your audience, right? So in one of my recent ads that I scripted, I took the angle of, saving time for business owners. For example, someone like you watching this video right now, you probably don't have the time to go, script your ads, to go build your funnels, to go design the funnels, or to go even, do the graphic assets and everything. And even though I could talk about, conversions or, bigger pain points, like, let's say, there could be a lot of different ways it could go. But I chose saving time, because it's the one thing that is recurring across all of our customers. So because I understood, the one thing that stands out the most in my sales calls, I was able to now translate that into my ads and use that as the big idea. So the lesson here is, don't try to use, have multiple angles that you're going for. Of course, you're going to test these angles to see what's going to resonate best. And in ads, I know I can go on tangents here, but basically in ads, you want to test the multiple angles to see what's going to be the winning hook or the winning idea. So, and once you get that winning idea, you want to dial in on that winning idea. You want to dial in on that big idea. So, find a big idea. What's the one thing that your audience cares about the most? And there's a couple ways you could do this. You could do this through, of course, testing with ads, but also if you want to find a list of angles that you could possibly go with when you're creating your ads or your content, you can, if you run a coaching, consultant, info product business, you could simply just go into Fireflies or Otter.ai, any of these tools that record your calls, and you can extract all of the transcripts, at least 10 or 20 of them. You can upload that to ChatGPT, and when you upload it to ChatGPT, what you want is for ChatGPT to give you, the top objections. So the most common objections that come up on sales calls, right? If you don't have sales calls, then you have to find a different way. Maybe, the chat transcripts, if you're doing like a DM strategy where you're closing people over DM, then you need to make sure that, you have some sort of way to extract those conversations and even export them, to ChatGPT to figure out what are the biggest objections. And that way you're going to find out, okay, what angles also work to handle all of these objections. And that way you're going to, inch closer and closer to finding what the big idea is and exactly how to position yourself as a person who can solve that problem. So with that being said, let's move to the next one. The next one here is your headline and your sub-headline. Now, if you follow my Twitter, I can't believe, how much I've talked about headline and sub-headlines. And the headline, for one, is the most important component on your landing page, hands down. And this is where you should spend 80-90% of your time, because without this, then if you're bringing the right traffic and the headline doesn't really resonate with them, you're going to end up, just wasting your time. You're going to end up, losing a lot of the traffic, even though they might be qualified. So you want to make sure that your headline is dialed in. This cannot be over-exaggerated. You need to make sure it's dialed in. And your headline needs to carry the big idea, right? It needs to have a dream outcome. It needs to have a unique mechanism. It also needs to have, a time frame for achieving this said goal. For example, a headline for my masterclass that I'm hosting is launch a profit printing funnel for your business in just 14 days using AI. Now you can see there the dream outcome is launch a profit printing funnel for your business, and the time frame is 14 days. And the unique mechanism there is AI. Now, there's a lot of different things that can go into, building a great headline. But if you can find a way to integrate the dream outcome, the unique mechanism, and a time frame, then you're going to have a good headline. If you actually understand your audience, if you understand the pain point, if you understand the big idea that you're trying to convey, the big idea, the biggest problem that you're trying to solve. Like I said, in my case, it was time. A lot of our clients are, very successful people. And what happens is they come to us not because, they don't have the experience in building funnels or landing pages, but because they don't have the time. And also, they also don't have the experience to the level that we do, because we've done this for dozens of businesses, right? And that's why, if you're watching this video up until this point, I assume you run some kind of info product offer, and maybe you're looking at all this stuff and it feels like, very complex to you. It feels like it's going to take up a lot of time. If that sounds like you, then I have an offer for you. We can help you do all of this stuff. You can build out your entire funnel from A to Z in 14 days. You're going to get a high converting, landing page or funnel, whatever the case might be. So if that sounds like you, click the link in the description, book a call with my team, and we'll see you on the call and see how we can help. Now, going back to this, your sub-headline should handle the objections, right? Your sub-headline should simply just say, okay, something like, for this masterclass that I did, that I'm actually hosting, and I have a masterclass I'm hosting, the sub-headline here was, even if you've never built a funnel before, you have no idea how to design a page, you can't write copy, and you've only got a couple $1,000 to spare. So you can see how this is handling the most common objections, because most of our clients, they have money, they're successful, but they don't want to spend too much. They probably have no idea how to build a funnel or landing page, even though some of them might, but for the most part, most of them don't, right? They have no idea how to design a page. They also don't know how to, write the copy, etc. So the entire point here, we want to use the sub-headline as a way to handle the objections, especially when you have a big idea, the time frame, and the unique mechanism in your headline. So it's extremely, this is going to take your funnels from, perform. Let's say your funnel is, I'm not going to throw out any random numbers or anything, but we have a client who's doing about 48% organic traffic, and he's doing about 48% on applications, the application rate, which is insane. He has an insane amount of traffic. So your headline is something that could literally 10x your revenue, right? Without changing the traffic, without adjusting anything, without adjusting your content, your headline can literally. We have a client right now who helps e-commerce brands scale to about $1 million to $2 million a month, and literally after they came on with us, and we changed up the headline to address the to have this dream outcome, to have the unique mechanism, and also to have the time frame. We just made them sound different. And by the way, me explaining this stuff, I'm not even the copywriter on my team, right? And you have to think about this, like people like Elon Musk, for example. If Elon Musk, he's on X tweeting all day, but somehow he still has all of these rockets going to space and coming back. He's not the one that's overseeing every single thing. Of course, Elon Musk has a certain type of management system, but like the point I'm trying to make here is you cannot, like as an entrepreneur, you cannot do everything yourself. You have to figure out where and when to delegate, and that's what separate the people who the really big players that we work with, and the peoples who don't really scale that fast or don't really scale that high, is that they understand when to delegate. Would you rather conduct an open heart surgery on yourself, or would you rather have a surgeon conduct that surgery on you? Of course, like you go hire a surgeon to go do the open heart surgery on you. But anyways, the point is you just need to understand when to delegate this task, because this could be, it can sound a bit too complex. Now, the next step here is your VSL. And the VSL is a crucial one. So after the headline, the VSL is the second most important component on your landing page. Excuse me, my voice is about to crack. So, and I love talking about this stuff all day, every day. Now, for B2B audiences, which is affluent audiences, people making around anywhere from $100,000 or even maybe $150,000 a year, you need to use a lot of logical points, right? You need to use more logical points than emotional points. Now, there's a way to do the emotional points and not make it seem like you're using fear-mongering tactics, like a lot of people usually do with B2C, which is a lot of emotional pain points. Can be very effective for selling B2C. But when you're selling to B2B, you need to understand that you're dealing with people who are way smarter. They're probably, successful in what they're doing. If someone is making $150,000, I mean, it's decent. Like, you're successful in what you're doing, realistically, right? And these people operate from a higher point of a higher frequency. So you need to make sure that you're speaking to them with logic. You need to make sure that the points that you're making actually make sense. They're not just, based on pure emotion. And that's the mistake that a lot of people make. They conflate the two, and then what happens is you have a disconnect, because the audiences, they're looking at this VSL and they're thinking, oh, this isn't for me. Even though the messaging is like, kind of seems like it's for me, but it doesn't really resonate. So you need to make sure that you're using a lot of logical points, and you can also layer some emotional pain points in there. Again, for a B2C audience, it's a bit different, and I'm going to show you how we usually do this. So again, just to go over the B2B VSLs for one moment, what you need to do is you need to find 10 transcripts from your qualified client sales calls. You need to upload those transcripts to ChatGPT, and you need to use the prompt below. So basically what you need to say is, analyze the provided sales call transcripts to create a comprehensive report. The report should include the following elements. Number one, objections and responses. Identify the most common objections mentioned by prospects and list them out based on the descending order of frequency. Summarize the corresponding responses. Highlight which responses were effective and which were not, if discernible. Number two, questions asked by prospects. So summarize the most common questions asked by prospects during the sales calls and highlight what these questions reveal about their priorities or concerns. Now, the third step you have to follow is create a Gamma doc, just like the one you're seeing right here. Create a Gamma doc and answer all of those major objections, and then make a video around it. That's literally all you have to do for B2B audience. And you also, obviously, you need to have your proof, but this is the general idea. It's like answering all of the most common objections. And if you get to the point where it's like, okay, why do I trust you? You can layer in, your social proof there. But it's always a good idea to open up with, social proof. In the first few minutes, ideally, you want to start with, you want to show social proof, because that's going to make people listen to you. For B2C VSLs, the first 30 seconds are the most important. So here you need to open up with a pattern interrupt or fact that's relevant to the viewer or big statement. And I hope I'm not moving too much away from my mic. But anyways, an example here could be, according to this study, wholesaling is the fastest way to get into real estate, right? This is for B2C. And by the way, I was scripting this out for one of our clients in the wholesaling space. So 60 to 90 seconds in, you need to state your big promise for the video. So an example could be, at the end of the video, you'll learn how to do X, Y, and Z. The third step here is to build authority. So state who you are and why they should listen to you and some of the results that you've been able to get for your clients or your students, whatever the case might be. The next step is your problem identification. So example, you might be watching this video right now because X isn't working for you, or skeptical, etc. And then you just make them understand what the pain points are. And again, find out the big idea. What is the one thing that they struggle with, and hammer it to, like, you need to hammer that into until it doesn't exist, if there's even anything like that. But you need to hammer that point home. The next one here is, you need to go into their situation. You need to explain the situation plus the mechanism of the false solution, because this is going to show them the problems at a deeper level and also show them the solutions that they've tried that haven't worked for them in the past. So it's going to help them. It's going to remove some of their limiting beliefs around trying a new product. So link those solutions to a current world event or stats so that it makes logical sense. For example, you might think it's because of this, but it is actually because of this other thing. Step 6 here is show the real solution and then link it to your product. Example, that's why we created this system that will help you solve X, Y, and Z. So number 7 is show proof. So this is working for this person, that person, and these are the results. And number 8, you need to add in a call to action plus qualification, because most people who are going to watch your B2C VSL aren't going to be qualified. So you need to make sure that you're not spending time with people who are not qualified for your offer. It's that simple. So if this makes sense for you, click the button with us, click the button to enroll with us, or enroll into the program. And this is for you if you're this kind of person, and this is not for you if, let's say, you're looking for a get rich quick scheme. You just want to disqualify the people who are not a fit for the offer. The next thing is show them what the situation is going to look like if they take action versus if they do not take action. So that's called crossroads. So you need to make sure you're placing the two paths that they could potentially follow, and you're making that very clear. Hey, this is how your life could look if you enroll with us today. This is how your life is going to look if you don't enroll with us today. Now, you want to reiterate the CTA, and this is just a rule of thumb. There's a lot that can go into VSLs. Obviously, this is going to work for you because we've done this for dozens of clients. But again, you need to figure out, okay, the kind of cadence, the kind of things that you think are going to be necessary for your industry, really. Because at the end of the day, I can give you this framework and you can use it and it's going to work. But at the end, you could be missing some things that are specific to your market. So it's very important to understand that. Now, back to our presentation here. The 5th one is your calendar setup and your availability. This is a huge one. And I did this wrong a couple of times, right? So your availability needs to be open as possible so the prospects can book at the most convenient time for them. Because let's say, you're in Dubai and you're selling to people who are in Eastern, which is US and Canada, and your time zone is only open for, the Dubai time zone. What's going to happen is you're going to lose a lot of sales calls, like potential sales calls that could be in your calendar. Like you're going to lose tens of thousands of dollars just by closing up your sales, closing up your calendar. So you need to make sure that personally, I'll tell you what I do. Like the main thing, the biggest thing is just, taking sales calls for me. And I just try to account for, my sleep time, and the rest of the calendar is open. I can take a sales call at any time, right? I don't have a sales team at this particular moment. I love to take my own sales calls. But basically, if you're running ads or if you're, organic content, but for the most part ads, if you're running ads and your availability is very low, then you're going to get, your cost per call is going to be extremely high just because, you have fewer slots available. So it's that simple. And then again, another thing to understand is the calendar setup as well. So if you're running ads, Don't send your prospects directly to your Calendly. And I'm telling you this because I've seen clients who've done this, and I've made this mistake myself. So you need to add a qualification step before they get to, you need to add a qualification step before they get to the Calendly. So add an application step using a type form to filter the qualified leads and unqualified leads. So what this is going to look like is you have a type form, you have a qualification questions. Let's say the main qualifier there is going to be the revenue question. So are you making $50,000 a month? If they say yes, then you redirect them to a Calendly, a page with the pixeled. Oh no, actually. So when you have the type form and you want to, after they fill out the type form and they select the appropriate answer that's going to determine if they're qualified or not qualified, you want to send them to a page which is going to be the Calendly page. And after they book from the Calendly, they should be redirected to a thank you page that is pixel. This is key. And this is something I started recently implementing for my business, because if you redirect them to a thank you page that is pixel, then it's going to send back that data to Facebook and let Facebook know that these are the kind of people that you're looking for. But again, if the person fills out the type form and the person isn't qualified, then you want to redirect them to a page that is in pixel. So that way your pixel data isn't going to be muddy. You're not going to have, unqualified people returning to Facebook and looking like they're qualified, and then Facebook is going to send you more unqualified people. And this is why sometimes results go to shit. I had this happen to me a couple of times where I was running ads, and because we're letting any and everyone book, the quality will be, high today and it will go back to shit, because there were a lot of people who were booking the calls. Some were qualified, but then some other ones were not qualified as well. So this is going to help you control the quality of the leads that are coming through. This can be a lot more in depth, but basically just make sure that you have the type form set up, and when they answer the question that is going to determine them as qualified or unqualified, you want to send them to appropriate pages, which is pixeled or non-pixeled, if that makes sense. Now, this is going to keep your pixel data squeaky clean.